father and my mother, and because I was an only child, but all the others had either a father or a mother or a brother or a sister who didn't come back. So really the children who came from the orphanage didn't manage it. There was one boy who came much later, and now he did, and he's a professor in Jerusalem. But he was the only one from the orphans, but he didn't live in the orphanage. He lived with a family, probably with an adopted family. So what was very interesting, I was very bad at gymnastics, and I really had no connection to we had a small Jewish lady who was our gymnastics teacher, and I was a very bad pupil, so there was not much love lost between the two of us, and I never had a special connection with her. And many years afterwards I worked at the Hebrew University of Public Relations, and who walks in? This lady with her sister from the States. And she told me that in the meetings, in the staff meetings, the teachers only looked at what the children had achieved, at the achievements, but they never took into account what we had been through. And she said she was the only one, because some of the kids, some of the orphans, were very good in physical education, were very good. So she tried to push them a little bit in the eyes of the teachers, and she said the teachers had absolutely no understanding for the fact that we were not like others. And she, Dafka, understood where the problem lay. That's very interesting. Yeah. Well, that's how we grew up. How we grew up in Holland.
How did your parents cope?
My parents coped very well. They really and truly I think every day when they got up, they realized what a blessing it was that we were still together. And they enjoyed life really as much as they could. But unfortunately, my mother, right after I got married, my mother got leukemia, and she died when she was 51 years old. And my father died also very suddenly before my first child was born. But I must say, the years from the day that we were together again till the day that my mother passed away, they really and truly knew that it was something, an extra bonus, and they really and truly enjoyed it. More questions?
No, so carry on. So you were in high school, so what happened after that?
So after high school, I studied 1 year I wanted to go to Israel, but I didn't really know what I should study, what would be good for Israel. And then in the end, I must also tell you that our high school, because it was such a small school, and it was so much on the achievement, but it was only on the achievement of the boys. Nobody took care of the girls. And so the only magama, the only thing you could study was mathematics. So we had an awful lot of mathematics, which gave all the boys a possibility to immediately get into a medical school, chemistry, physics, whatever, mathematics. And I had to struggle a lot because I was not very good in mathematics. And then when I got the results of my final examination of my bagrut, it was so obvious that languages was my strong point that I decided I'm going to study languages, and I wanted to go to Geneva to the interpreter school. My parents thought I was still too young to be all on my own, so they sent me 1 year in Amsterdam to study English. And after that year I went to Geneva to the interpreter school. studied for 3 years. I finished the translation, the first part, and then I went back to Holland, and I started to work, and then we got married.
Where did you meet?
Well, I don't know where we met because he was there all the time. We were in the same, like Bnei Akiva and the student organization, and we were in the same school. But I think we went once, both of us, to a Hebrew seminar. They did then the Sochnut did Hebrew seminars where they studied Hebrew but also other subjects. And we were together at a seminar in Montreux in Switzerland, and that's really what did it. So then we married, and then of course my mother passed away, and my husband had finished chemistry. But in Holland we have a different system. When you, instead of your second degree, you get something which is called doctorandus, DRS, and then you have to start on your thesis to do your PhD. And in chemistry, of course, they give you a subject, and my husband was given a subject, and then when he was halfway the subject, the professor said, well, it's the wrong subject. It doesn't work out. That happens sometimes in chemistry. And then he was given another subject. He started all over again, and the second subject also didn't come out. And then we went to Paris. My husband was offered a job in Paris with a consultancy. So we moved to Paris, and then my father passed away. And our first son was born in Paris, and then the second son was born in Paris, and then came the 6-Day War, and it so happened that the director of the Paris firm was Jewish, and after the 6-Day War there was such a great enthusiasm for everything Zionist, and so my husband said that he wanted to go to Israel, and would he be willing to keep him on a part-time basis? And as the situation was favorable, he said yes. So we moved here. It was 3 floors up, and my husband continued to work in Paris part-time for many years. And our children grew up in Jerusalem.
How did you find Israel?
When we came was of course the best time. It was right after the 6-Day War, and everything was upbeat. But we are religious, so it makes life so much more normal, and I think we never questioned the fact that we came to Israel. No, it was the right thing to do. I also, when I studied in Geneva, actually I finished 1 semester earlier than I was allowed to take my final exams. So I went to Paris, and in Paris I spent a weekend in a school outside Paris which was called Orsay, and it was led by Rav Mani, they called him Manitou, the scout leader, Rav Ashkenazi, who passed away now, but he lived for many years in Jerusalem. And he sort of set up a school for children from North African families who wanted to go to university. And it was sort of a boarding school. They lived in that institution, and he helped them cope with their university studies. He was also a professor of philosophy at the time, and he gave them Jewish background. And I was invited 1 weekend there, and coming from completely Ashkenaz surrounding, everything was of course very exotic for me. I came there, and there we were received by Manitou, who was wearing a turban and a long robe, and well, everything was different. But what I wanted to tell is that we slept in a large dormitory, and there was a tiny little North African woman who was in charge of us, and she gave us our beds, and she started to talk to me, and she said, where do you come from, and then where were you in the war? And I said, I was in the camps, and I really don't know why I came out and not somebody else, which of course is the question that haunts everybody. And then she said, or I said, I didn't know, what did I do that I came out and not somebody else? And she said, that's not the question, it's not what you did, it's probably something that you still have to do. And I always thought, well, that can only be making Aliyah. I couldn't think of anything else, and I still believe that the only thing I could do, I don't know if it contributed to anything, but still it was the logical thing was to go to Israel and make Aliyah. So from that point of view, I think we were always satisfied, going through the ups and the downs that everybody has to go through. I worked at the Hebrew University at the Kangisser-Cohen at the Public Relations Department, and I took care of the guests, all sorts of guests that came to the university. It was very interesting, very nice. And now, 2 years ago, I stopped working. Now I'm a pensioner and a grandmother, which is also very nice.
Did you always feel that you were a survivor, or?
I think so, yes. Yeah. I always thought, because I was the youngest by far, I was the only child in this family, and whatever happened to us always happened to the whole family. And I always thought there's going to be a moment when I'm the only one who is a survivor. Because of course the others by now are all gone. And so I always thought I was the only survivor, but now that I'm in Israel, I realize that there are many more. And I'm also not the only child survivor. There are also many more. But yeah, I think, that's part of my biography. Absolutely.
You spoke about it?
Yeah.
A lot, or?
Not a lot, no. But I mean, it was something natural. And also the children, they went to school in Dugma, and from Kika Aleph, they had something for Yom HaShoah. And then we usually sat together, and so the teacher said, if there is a parent who still has a tzlai, they should bring it to school or something. So I gave them always a little thing, and then usually at night we sat down and we watched television, or there was a program on television, and then I would talk to them a little bit, but I gave it always in very small doses. And what's interesting is that my son, I did an interview for Spielberg last year, exactly a year ago. And then my son said, yeah, actually my mother talked about it, but the way she talked about it, it wasn't really so bad. And it wasn't really so bad for me, because I was always with my mother, and I mean, it was bad, but as a child, I had always been sheltered by the fact that I was never alone.
Did they explain to you what was going on?
No, but I think they didn't have to explain, because first of all, we overheard everything. There's no privacy. There was, whatever was said, you could hear as a child. I mean, they really had to go outside if they had to discuss something that the child shouldn't hear, because there was only one room or something like that. So we knew. We didn't know about 6 million, of course, we didn't know, and we didn't know exactly what happened in Auschwitz, but we knew. You saw it around, but of course not. But I think we didn't realize that this was not normal, because we were too young. Children who were friends who are 10 years older have much more problems And it was much more difficult for them to cope after the war because they could understand much better. We saw it and we took it in as a part of, well, that's the way it happened. But we knew, we were certainly aware of.
And your mother, did she see that she was suffering or that she was sick?
Well, that was, my mother was only sick the last 2 days. She was really the strong one always in that group because most of the women were elderly ladies or pregnant, and there were only a few people her age. She was always the strong one. She always had to carry out all the horrible jobs. So my mother had another difficulty because we came from Germany. Her Dutch wasn't so good. So if people got cross with her, they would call her the mof, which is a derogative word for German. To think of it in how certain. That was easy. She was the only, in our group all the others were Dutch by birth. It helped us with the Germans when we needed something, but for her it was a terrible handicap. Also, that after the war, they never taught Dutch in public, German in public, because really, if you taught German in public, the Dutch would immediately react. But they always spoke, of course, with a strong German accent. And also, I think that they kept together a lot. The refugees from Germany, the refugees from Eastern Europe. My father-in-law set up a special organization for Eastern European Jews where they came to hear Yiddish theater and they could speak Yiddish, and that was also a very active social life. Because even after the war, it was sometimes difficult to integrate into the Dutch Jewish society. So maybe that made it easier for us in Israel. I don't know. Come to think of it. But that also in Holland, we were not really Dutch because my parents weren't born in Holland, so we always had that.
Did you feel the difference in Israel?
About being an Ole, of course, yeah. But also, I always felt very unpleasant when I said that I was a survivor. I wouldn't particularly say that in Israel. Especially by the authorities. If the health authorities were here that I'm a survivor, they immediately want to check my lungs every year, and you weren't supposed to be completely normal in Israel, not in Holland. That's a year here. And that wasn't, for us it wasn't so bad because we came late. We came only 67, but the people who came right after, they will certainly tell you different stories, how hard it was.
How else was it? What else made you feel that here?
No, it was really the officials. If the moment you had to do something with a health authority, they said, "Oh, you're a survivor. Did you do this? Did you check there? Are you going there?" And something like a health hazard for the community. But no,
When was the first time you gave testimony?
Last year. Last year, all of a sudden, I have a cousin who did interviews for Spielberg in Tel Aviv, and she kept telling me, you must do it, you must do it. And first I thought actually I have nothing to say because I was so small. And then I decided actually I do have, because it's the whole family, and I think it's good to have the family story on record. And then I was putting it up and putting it off, and then one day she called me and she said, this month is the last month, the money is running out. And then I did it. That was about a year ago. It was the last month that they did the interviews.
How was it for you?
Easy. It was amazing. Very easy. Yeah.
Did your husband do it as well?
He did, yeah. They were hidden in the center of Amsterdam. My mother-in-law is a very independent lady. Till this day, she lives on her own next door. And she didn't want to depend on somebody else. So she rented an apartment in the center of Amsterdam. It's unbelievable. On the name of a Dutch lady who had she wasn't married and she had a child, which in those days was quite a stigma. So she was willing to, for the money, to give her name, and so in her name we rented the apartment, and they had a relative who worked in the underground movement, and they helped them with food, and the lady also, I think, and her daughter lived together with them in that apartment. Till the end of the war. In Holland there is actually, she's now in Israel, there is a psychologist, Bloeme Evers, who is doing she wrote a book about the mothers who gave children to other people into hiding.
What language?
I think the book is in Dutch, maybe it's in English. I don't know, I can find out for you. Yeah. About the reactions of the mothers, and she did that not so long ago, maybe 2 or 3 years. The book is out maybe a year.
You would go back?
Yeah. We go back. We try to go back sometimes every year, every second year. Yeah.
Do you go back to Western?
I want to. I've never been, and I have never been. I wanted very much this winter, and I was first of all I was a bit short in time, but then it was closed. But we intend to go to Holland this year for a vacation, and really I already set aside one day to go back. Although they say you can't see very much. I would also like to go back to Bergen-Belsen, but not on my own, with a group. So if once I'll get a chance to join another group, I think I'll go back there too.
Why?
Just to check on my memory. Westerbork, I remember really, I can still make a drawing of the whole, because I was so free there. I could go and visit my father and my aunts at their work, and I could go to our place and to school. So I would really like to verify my memory with whatever is left. We'll see.
Memories and it worries you? Or was it something that...
No, I wasn't really quite sure if I remembered everything correctly. But then I found a letter which my father had written right after the war, the first letter which he had written to his relatives in Canada. And there he gives all the facts and the dates, and it all coincides. There was a little bit of additional information, but all the things that I remember were correct. There was another thing where I didn't want to give Edut in the beginning because I wasn't quite sure that whatever the way I remembered it was right. But now I think I have checked out most of it. I mean, the things that I don't remember, of course. The things that I remember, I checked out. They're correct. How do you get on with your research? Do you get different stories, or is it very much the same?
No, it's very different.
Different.
Everyone has very
Different.
very different things. I think that what you say comes around the older you are, there's an element of foremost starts because they know something else. Everyone, something to compare it to. And also your parents. I mean,
it makes all
and if they were functioning, I mean, or the parents who start.
That's absolutely.
But the interesting thing about child survivors and their memory, they remember things they don't. Some people find it hard if they don't. Really uncomfortable. There's things like, if I've read about if you can try and think about it with things that you wore.
Nothing. No. I know my mother's, yes, and it was on the second class we had, we sat with a few people and we came to the same conclusion. Everybody remembers somebody else's, but not what we were ourselves.
There was a toy that you took.
Toy I know, that I remember. The toy I remember.
If there's smells that you smell that or sounds that you hear that makes you think about images.
Images, barbed wire, that is. That's something. And then back in Belgium we only had one type of soup, how do you call it? It's like a red pumpkin, it's called in English. So sometimes we are at weddings and we serve pumpkin soup, and then you can see exactly who was the child in the camps. Small things that all of a sudden. Children get younger, the ones that are still alive, they were younger and younger. It's also amazing how much the Holocaust influences Israeli society. Now on our trip, we were with a group of 34 people, and we take a class at Yad Ben Tzvi. I take it already for the third year with this group, and we were already 5 days in Jordan last year with most of the people. And we went through the south of France, where one of us had been during the war, where he was hidden and where he had been in the underground movement. And one stretch on the highway, she gave him the mic, and he started to tell us Billy and this and that. It was very moving. And then she gave the microphone to everybody else. I didn't want to talk. After him, I just felt no. But anyhow, the others did. And what was interesting, all the Vatikim, they started to talk about their parents. And if their parents hadn't been in the Holocaust, they started about uncles and aunts. But everybody had a Holocaust story. They missed the boat. They would have been on the boat out of Palestine, but they missed the boat. But everybody came with a Holocaust story. I was amazed. It was really amazing.
It's different from
Yeah.
You read a lot about the Shoah?
No, I do read, but not. And the problem is that now everybody's writing his memoirs.
Yes.
So all my friends, and of course they give me their memoir, and of course I want to read them also. So I do read more now. Yeah, because there's really.
And films?
Films, I don't particularly go out to see them, but if they're on television, I see them. I didn't go to see Schindler's List, but when it was on television, I watched it. And I taped also a lot on Yom HaShoah. But the idea that I went to see Shoah once, but the idea that I for my entertainment, I didn't go, and now I regret it. The Italian, did you see it? Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm sorry I didn't see it, but they'll probably have that on television next to Yom HaShoah. Yeah.
How do you feel on Yom HaShoah?
It's difficult. It's difficult. Yeah. But now this year they sent me for Yad Vashem to lecture also on Yom HaShoah. I'm not quite sure that I like that so much. I don't know why. I'm not used to, I worked always at the university with groups. When you are with groups, you're in the middle. So you have immediate feedback. And usually it was very positive. Every now and then, of course, it wasn't. Usually it was very positive. If you stand there, I stood there in front of a whole class of soldiers, and they didn't say a word. And when I was finished, they said, "Fine, thank you very much, the car is there." And I went home. So it gives you sort of a strange, unfinished feeling. That's not, I didn't like that so much.
Do you feel that people interested?
I don't know. Apparently, I don't know. That's what really bothered me, because I didn't know. I came also at the end of the day, and they had a Bicart Beta, and it was one of those fighter units. So it was really, conditions were not very, very good. So I had a feeling that they were just glad to get it over with and call it a day. But that was probably not their fault, but because they had had such a long day. It was by 6 in the evening or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and they had had a whole day of all sorts of things. So I don't know. Hard to say. Actually, I think if I Yom HaZikaron, if I have seen 3 movies about families who have lost soldiers, then but of course they also go out and they do something else. So I think they must have exactly the same feeling that how much can you take? I don't think it's a matter of not being interested or not relating to, but it's just so much human misery that you can relate to. I'm not so not so completely convinced that this group, what they are doing, the Edu-Yot, that it's so important. But you don't know. You know.
Why?
I mean, sending us to talk to school children and soldiers, and maybe. But I'm not 100% certain. It might be. It's just that there is a small chance that maybe I'm not. What do you think?
Well, how did you feel on that course?
It was interesting. It was very interesting, I think. Yeah. Yeah. Oh. Also, as I said, that I always have this idea that I'm the last survivor, so although I know I'm not, still it's good to be in a group and realize that you're really not.
Did your family have to go through the claim compensation? Did it have to go through?
Yeah, well, some of it. My parents weren't so keen on it, and so they really, for us, they claimed really very minimal. They did claim for my grandmother because she had no means of, she had no income, and they did claim for another aunt who had no income whatsoever, but for ourselves they won't do it. Now, it's sort of, it also bothers me a lot, the whole story. I have a feeling that the people who really lost everything are no longer here, and the people who claim it are not, you know, not always there. It's not, I think they shouldn't have done it at all. They should have left it the way it was. We have Chiluke Deot, my husband and I. Because really I have a feeling we got out of it, and that should be enough. But it's a difficult attitude. And I'm sure there are lots of people who only take advantage, but there are always a lot of people who take advantage of this sort of thing. So you only open up a door for people who like to take advantage. It's all the risks, give a bad name, and as far as I'm concerned, we can close all claims and just leave it as it was. Are you family related to the Holocaust, or just no?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Absolutely not. I had a boyfriend when I was in high school for a long time, and his grandmother was a survivor. She was in Bergen-Belsen.
Yeah.
And I was very close to her. Still am. That was the only. All moved before the war. I mean, it's interesting though. I went now to Lithuania. And I went to where my dad was born. He was born in Lithuania. And when I went there, and I mean, this is a very different story because people were killed in their villages.
Yeah.
So you go to the end of the village and there's a mass grave, and the other end is another one. And you think to yourself, I think to myself.
Yeah. They could have walked around. I could have walked around. Yeah.
And it could be, an aunt. I mean.
Yeah.
So it's very, very interesting. So sad country. I mean, you go from shtetl to shtetl. It's the same thing everywhere.
And did you know where you had to look for the mass graves, or they tell you, or
well, it's interesting. Some, you've got to look for. Like we went to a lot of shtetls. I had a guide, a Jewish man, who lives in Kozna. And we went and asked the villagers where is the Jewish cemetery, and usually it's there, the graves. It's a destroyed cemetery and it's a mass grave. But this one is that he'd phoned the village
Ah,
before.
Ah, yeah.
And so they thought the Queen was coming
Mhm.
because I was coming to the
Yeah,
Queen.
yeah.
So I had a personal driver and took us everywhere. And they the ones who put the monuments up.
Yeah.
It's not the Jews.
Yeah.
So they're very proud of the fact that they've done this.
Yeah.
So there was one place where no one's really seen it. It's in the middle of a forest. And people don't really know where it was.
Yeah.
So we spent about 2 hours
Looking.
looking with some Lithuanian young man who
Yeah.
took a
Yeah.
tramp with it. He drove us around until we found.
And what did you find? Was it a
Well, it was like a.
cemetery or?
This particular one was a mass grave, and it was. There's a survivor in Lithuania who does all the sculptures. So there was a sculpture,
Yeah.
a wooden sculpture for this particular community. It was the middle. The middle of the forest. It was amazing. So you were saying no one comes to see it. This is the middle of.
Yeah. We have, my father comes from a very small village near the Dutch border. And the family there is a little cemetery. Also you have really to know where to go. You have to cross a football field, and then there is a little water. And right behind is this cemetery with about 15, 16 graves, and they're all from my own family. But also they keep it up very nicely. At least when we came, it looked very well kept. Yeah, but it's also something, if you wouldn't know where to look for, you would never find it.
You ever been to Poland?
No. We still think of maybe doing something. My father-in-law came from Poland, Austria, whatever, changed 5 times in Colombia, I think now it's Russia, actually. So we were really thinking of going there once with the family. I did go to Germany. The Germans are so thorough. So it so happens that both when my mother and when my father were born, there was somebody who did the research, who researched and published the book on the Jewish families of that place. So, and then there was one lady, she's fantastic. She's still researching for us. She can't stop anymore. She goes back more and more.
Until you find, the destruction of the temple.
Yeah, something like that.
Have you been to Germany?
Yeah. Well, I've been to the cemeteries, of course, and they're both very active. For instance, where my mother lived, he was a teacher. He came here on an exchange program with Israeli teachers, and they were walking on the street, and no Jews anymore where they lived. And they said to each other, "Hey, interesting, what happened to our Jews who lived in that particular?" And she works in the archives, in the archives of the municipality. So she started to dig out the whole history of the families. And through the archives, they wrote the book. And then through the book, they came to know the people. And they are very keen on inviting people and keeping contact. They take care of the cemetery. It's unbelievable. They know, and they came to my house, then they came again to Israel. They came to my house and they looked and they said, "Oh yes, that's this one. Don't you have a picture of your uncle that and that?" They knew my family much better than I. It was unbelievable.
That's amazing.
Really amazing. Yeah.
Those are your parents?
That's my parents. Well, I had a few pictures, but it's really amazing. And it's not so easy because the other people in the town don't always appreciate it, because they find in the archives also exactly what happened 40, 45. And this couple insisted on having a plaque where the synagogue was, where it says exactly every name that he was sent to where he was deported to and where he died. Because most of the history books in Germany end with destination unknown or something, or they don't even talk about it. But they made the point that they wanted to have every name of every person who was killed, where he was killed. It's really amazing.
How do you feel being in Germany when you went to
Oh, I hate it. I really only go. We did go when we traveled from Holland to Switzerland. We did go to Germany, but never for enjoyment, just to pass through. And my father had a very good German friend, a non-Jew, who saved some of his essential things for his factory. So that my father in 45 could start right away, well not right away, but as soon as he had collected whatever there was still left, he could start the factory and started his production again, thanks to a German gentleman who had kept it for him and sent it immediately after the war. So every time we traveled from Holland to Switzerland, we would go religiously and visit him. They also had one son, which they had hidden all through the war because they didn't want him to be in a Hitler organization. So he hoped, and then my father went right away. We had the cemetery rearranged by the